Hello, hello, hello. It is Sick Boy. I'm sick once again. So if I cough a couple times, please forgive me, guys. I'm sorry. Might cough a couple times, but you know what? I care so much about you guys. I thought I'll make content anyway, even though I'm sick. I'll make some content for you guys. And the big reason I wanted to make content was because on Undead Chronics channel we have a topic that I care about deeply that tends to get me quite animated, which is the church worships women. This is very true, guys, and I want to qualify this, right? Because I'm part of the Orthodox Church, right? Ortho bro, Ortho Chad, right? I would say it is definitely different. Like, there is a major difference that's not just, oh, it's this denomination, that denomination, they're all the same. No, no, no. I would say it is actually significantly different from the Catholic Church, which literally worships women, uh, and the Protestant churches, which have all these boomers who worship women, right? Um, but all that to say, there's a major problem in these churches of worshiping women, not holding them accountable, and it's part of the reason that young men don't want to participate in these churches. If I was going to a Protestant church and maybe in a different life, I was starting from scratch, I didn't know which church to pick. The only reason I would even pick a Protestant church is not because I think it's masculine or patriarchal. No, no, no. I would only go there just because there's women there who I know are going to be easy and, looking for some good times, right? So it's a bit of a problem in the church. Let's hear Undead Chronic break it down and let's get into it.
Here from Effective Purpose. He's been blowing up recently. He's been addressing the problems the church has with young men. He's a Christian, a married Christian man. I think he's a pastor. I don't know. And this is a video in his series. He actually name drops the war band, but the title of this video is Why Boomers Don't Care That Young Men Are Struggling. Timeline of the dating collapse. Let's give it a listen.
Young men today are more boned than a dinosaur exhibit. So boned that, as we're about to see, most will likely never be able to dig themselves out of the hole.
Let's see this. Men are expected to pay like it's 1950, commit like it's 1850, and accept disrespect like it's 2025. Very true, guys. Very true. Men are held to all the same standards as before, but they get none of the privileges. And yeah, if a woman, divorces you or yells at you, you probably did something wrong. So it's probably your fault, guys.
They're in on the
Based. He's like, he instantly thinks they're in a hole, but look at this guy. Truth is, men are expected to pay like it's the 1950s, commit like it's the 1850s, and accept disrespect like it's 2025. That's not him, like, you're not in a hole. Saying that you're boned by the dating isn't saying young men are in a hole. I would say most are, but if you could recognize the fact that these women are trash, you can avoid the pitfalls. I think I need to convince this guy to read Ecclesiastes a couple times.
their own, and the only people who could help them won't. Today, as we finish up our timeline of the dating collapse, we're going to look at why it's so hard for boomers and Xers to accept that young men can't necessarily fix their problems all on their own, and how their refusal to help has affected the trajectory.
Well, let's think about why men can't really solve the problem on their own. So, where's my word form? Come on, come back. There it is. So for individual men, there's stuff you can do as an individual to help make your life easier. You can lift weights. You can make money. You can do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You can do all these things to make your life as an individual slightly better. The problem is this problem is not an individual problem. That's the problem. The problem is not that young men individually are just not jacked enough, that men are just not working hard enough. They're not working enough hours enough. The problem is a systemic problem. So the problem, men can't fix it because it's not about them as an individual. They can do all these things. They can make money and increase their chances individually for themselves, but they can't help other men in that way. They can't fix the system. They can't help the system improve, and it's only going to get worse, guys. It's only going to get worse. Women are only going to get more desperate. Your dollar is only going to become less valuable. It's only going to become more socialist. Men can't fix these problems because it's a societal issue, right? And men don't have any voice in society. Nobody cares about what young men say. They're evil, misogynist guys. You're just a dirty, selfish, horny misogynist. So no one cares what you have to say, anyways. Even if you wanted to collectivize and, you know, push for like political change or whatever, they won't even listen to you. They don't like you. And to be honest, I don't even think politics would work. I'm different from Nick Fuentes, in the sense that I think that there's forces above politics that own the politicians, control the politicians, that control the bills being passed, that have their thumbs on certain votes and politicians in power, where there's just certain things that are never going to get past the floor, no matter how, convincing you are, no matter how many, even if you win a bunch of seats or elections. I don't think certain bills or certain, motions are going to get passed on the floor. And I also think it's too late. I think that even if you had a bunch of groypers get into politics and you had them, fix the problems, we're going to get rid of this, get rid of that, I think the people already in power already have too much of a head start. They already have billions and billions of dollars. They already own all the social media. They already own Hollywood. They already own all of academia. They already own a bunch of countries, right, through, liberal democracies around the world. So the idea that you can take this giant fucked up system that's heavily in bed with all of its institutions, and you're going to fix that just by going into politics and, standing in front of a mic and being charismatic, that's not really going to work. Now, the only thing that might maybe work is if you kind of did what Donald Trump did, which was water your politics down to something that is much more populist, because that might be the more realistic strategy. Is say something populist, not something radical. Say something kind of, center of the line that most people can agree with, and start there and just slowly, right, like little bit at a time, start to chink away at their armor. But we don't have time for that. Like, that's the other problem too, is like, I don't think people realize how rapidly the United States is declining. And I had this argument with somebody about immigration. They were saying, look at Trump. Trump's getting all these immigrants out. Look, he's got ICE. He gave them a bunch of money with the big, beautiful bill. He's deporting people. Here are the numbers. And I said, okay, but look at how many people Joe Biden imported in his 4 years. It was 10 million, right? So you have Trump, who maybe he deports 1 million. Okay, but the next Democrat is going to import 10, 15 million, right? So this is the problem, is it's like you can make progress, but we're already on a steady decline. We're already going off the cliff. You can hit the brakes, but we're already barreling down the hill, and the cliff is coming up close, guys. Like, at a certain point, we got to act fast if we want to actually fix things. Just starting with some political action and reform, it's not going to be enough. Social security is going to kill the monetary system. The debt is going to kill the monetary system. America's hegemony across the globe is collapsing. They can't sustain wars in Ukraine, wars in Taiwan, wars in the Middle East, wars in Venezuela, tariffs all over the world. It's not sustainable. Trump is driving America to collapse, unironically. And they say, oh, you're a crazy leftist for saying that. No, he actually kind of is. He's like, the tariffs are not really a good idea if you want to stabilize America. It's not a good idea. So that's my framing on the problem, guys. I think it's a major systemic issue. And I think there's people with lots of money, tons of power, tons of influence, big giant circle of these people, and all of them love immigration, they love feminism, they love open society, global homo, Fabian socialism type stuff. They want to get rid of borders, get rid of gender roles, get rid of patriarchy. And you're going up against these people. It's not about, can I vote and maybe I'll pass a law? No. It's about, you're competing with people who have billions and billions of dollars for influence, and you're just never going to win.
Victory of Western society.
It's done. The West is done. It's done. Like, what do you think the West is going to be in 10 years? Do you think it's going to be easier to get a house? Do you think violence is going to go down? Do you think women are going to regenerate their hymens? No. It's done. Pack it up, boys.
So let's rewind one more time and finish the story. The 2010s, the bubble times are officially over. Men in the West are not equal, especially economically. Wealth is more concentrated at the top than ever, and only the most successful men can provide things that used to be basic, like a house. This means women now feel like only the best of men can give her enough.
Wait, this is great. Men, this is literally all we want. A little body, facial hair, a little muscle, a little fat. Dude, where's the fat? There's no fat. Where's the fat? Where are they pointing to? Bro, there's no fat on this guy. I mean, first of all, it's only a top half. Women. I don't ask for much. What they ask for. Superman. Literally Superman. Yeah, that's a problem. I mean, this is a good point. So, this just shows how delusional women are. They think that asking for Superman is easy. Which is really ironic, guys, because do women actually strength train? Do very many women actually strength train? And they say, oh, I do glutes. Okay, training glutes and legs is not the same as strength training or upper body. It's really not the same as cardio either. Like, it's not the same. Like, most of the exercises, you're sitting down, you're just moving your legs. Yeah, it can be hard, but... And then most women don't really do that. Most women are not training for strength. They're not building muscle. There's a few women who train muscle for glutes, but that's about it. So when women come along and say, all I want is a little muscle, it's like, okay, bitch, none of you have even learned how to, you don't know how hard it is to actually build muscle. You don't know how much actual effort for years and years and years, or months if you're, really good, it actually takes for a man to build up a physique of muscle. Right? Like, it's completely different from a woman just staying skinny or a woman just, staying in shape. It's like female fitness of just like, oh, I'm just going for a jog. Like, don't mind me, I'm going to eat some kale. Completely different from a man who's going in the gym and he's training all of his body to exhaustion. He's breaking down the muscle fibers aggressively, exhausted, and then he does that every day. Like, the intensity in male fitness and just a little muscle, like, to look like the Superman guy here, it's not fucking easy. And women think that they're entitled to it. It's like, bitch, you haven't lifted shit. You can't even, like, curl 20s. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Enough. While social media and apps now give her a fake feeling of access to the best of men. So we now have a very small pool of haves who get all of the attention from women and a...
Okay, does this guy not look Jewish? I'm just saying, guys, that guy looks a little bit Jewish, but maybe I'm wrong. I can't really see his face. But I'm just looking at that nose, bro. That's a pretty interesting nose, bro. I don't know.
large portion of have-nots who get quite literally nothing. If you're a guy, this sucks. But when these guys try...
It depends on how you react to this reality. Like, do you just accept the tortas? Are you just miserable? I think it's more miserable from the ages of 16 to 25. And I guess it really depends on personal experience. My best friend's still a virgin. He's almost 30, and he lives a fulfilling life. He's not depressed about it. He's upset about it, but he's not, like, in the bathtub crying. He's inventing new drugs for cardiac issues. He's a respected PhD. He's not crying about the fact that women are thoughts. We laugh at thoughts. It's, but there's a lot. I'm going to say that me and my friend are probably in a different stratosphere of intelligence. If you are an incel and you can't really...
Here's what I will say. I'll say, if you go on Tinder, Tinder is just depressing. Yeah, get off Tinder. Because Tinder is very, very skewed against men. And it can feel depressing going on Tinder. I think it's kind of a it's an artificial reality. It's not real, right? Like the real sexual market value for you, you're not going to see that on Tinder. You're going to feel like you have no sway over women. You're going to feel like, holy shit, right? The only women swiping on you are going to be like fat broads, right? So and that's not me. I'm not just saying for myself. You're like, oh, it's because you can't get laid. I'm saying in general, and guys who go on Tinder know this, Tinder is just depressing for men. Just don't go on Tinder. It's I think that's what it is. It's psychological, not just humiliation, but like, what's it called? Demoralization.
You know, you're still just obsessed with the poon. Yeah, you're probably miserable. Now, these groups of miserable men, they make change. They will make change.
Try to talk about these problems with cultural, institutional, or church leaders, they're met with a brick wall because these older guys tend to believe none of this stuff is real. And if there are problems, they typically assume it's the guy's fault, and women are typically assumed to be innocent. Now, to understand where they're coming from, we need to look at a few of the ways.
Doesn't that look like Markiplier? That looks like an old, like gay hipster Markiplier. I'm just saying. Anyway.
Is this whole story conflicts with their core beliefs. First, the data itself is incompatible with their worldview. The older men and women in charge, especially in the church, tend to have a more conservative, individual.
Let me pause and think. Let me think. I mean, the boomer phenomenon is pretty easy to explain, but I'm trying to think about how I could explain it to them in a way that to them doesn't just sound like whining and complaining, you know, because from their perspective, they're just going, well, I didn't have a problem. Just do it. Just pull up your bootstraps. Just do it. And how to explain it? It's like, yeah, that works to an extent, but there's also systemic issues that you guys pushed. Your generation pushed feminism. Your generation pushed the LGBTQ acceptance with legalizing homosexuality. And there's a tendency for boomers to forget that the modern culture of today was not formed by young people. So young people did not decide what the culture was going to be today. We were born into it. What made the culture of today was the previous generations, right? And the social movements and political decisions of previous generations, which then crystallized into what we have today. So once you understand that, you realize the responsibility for today and the problems of today are the boomers. And then they don't like that conclusion, but that's just reality, right? Little kids growing up, little ignorant 18-year-olds just trying to get laid, they don't form the culture. They are produced by the culture. And this is like a fundamental misunderstanding of how culture works with boomers. Boomers think that the reason or that the reason the culture is the way it is today is because of how just 18-year-olds act. Well, the 18-year-olds, the kids of today do this, so that's why the culture is like this. It's like, no. This is not true at all. Maybe for things like memes, maybe for stuff like, I don't know, like dress code, maybe to an extent, like trends. But for systemic behavior, no, this is not true at all. The reason the dating market sucks today has nothing to do with, teenagers, acting collectively. It's not just a product of the majority. And so to the boomer, I would say this. I would say they are inheriting a culture which you and Gen X and the silent generation too all produced. And they're inheriting that. And you can say, work harder. You can say, do X, Y, Z. But your work doesn't go as far, right? So let me think about it in terms of economics. You can always just say, work harder. You can always say that. But that's ignorant of the fact that your dollar, as inflation continues to happen, is becoming less and less valuable. And maybe during your time where you had Reagan economics with very low inflation, that wasn't a big deal. You could say, yeah, there's inflation, but just keep working hard. You'll be fine. That's not true today. definitely with inflation today, your dollar is decreasing rapidly. Your purchasing power, your disposable spending, your ability to buy a house is decreasing rapidly. So that's the first thing. And the same is true, this same rule of systemic problems eating away at your power is also true in the dating market. So right now we have a bunch of women who are slutting around, who are offering it up, and we have social media, which allows men who are at the top of the totem pole to, put themselves out there and collect all the women, right? And women want the best guy, so they're all chasing, the top, 5 or 10%. And kind of the way I would explain this to them is I would say, back in your day, you had to, maybe you had to walk, maybe you had to take a bus, maybe you didn't travel very far outside your town. But nowadays, everybody has a car, everybody's living in these large cities, and everybody's on social media. So you can see everybody in your town or in your city by going onto a dating app and seeing who's there, right? So you're not just limited by your friend circle anymore. Instead, you have access and opportunities that include the whole city and maybe other parts of the city, maybe outside the state, outside the country. And so what this means for men is that if women are picking the best guy is not just, their neighborhood bro who lives next door. Instead, they're picking the best guy from their phone, which includes the entire city, right? Might include the entire state. And so men have to compete with all these other men they didn't before because of social media, right? It's very simple. And this makes it harder for men to, get female attention and validation because they have to compete with men that they never did before, right? And in short, I would say, yes, work harder. That's true. Become attractive. Yes, always. That's a given. But that doesn't change the fact that there's inflation in terms of dating and in terms of the economy that is eating away at men's purchasing power. And you can say work harder, work harder, work harder, but that doesn't fix the systemic issue. And the systemic issue is only going to get worse. And that can be very demoralizing for men who feel like, I work super hard, but even with all my hard work, I'm still only afforded, half the amount of privilege, half the amount of purchasing power, or half the amount of, high quality, virtuous women that my grandfather was entitled to. It can be very demoralizing for men. And when we talk about the systemic issue, it doesn't solve it to just say, well, work harder. Right? Because those are two different things. Yes, work hard, try to get a good job, make $100K a year. But even if you make $100K a year, that $100K is worth less and less each year. So your hard work is being undermined each year, right? So that can feel very demoralizing, and it's still a problem even if you work really hard, right? Because if you worked as much as I did, then you, as a boomer, would be making a lot more. So it's unfair, right? So I don't know how to explain this to boomers. It's really hard to get boomers to understand that the world is just not what it was back then. They think everything is the same as when they grew up, and they tend to just hand wave modern stuff. They just go, oh yeah, that's stupid kids doing stupid stuff. I don't know, a bunch of weirdos. They just hand wave stuff in the younger generations, and it's like, no, you can't do that. We have to actually pay attention and analyze it, not just hand wave it. And they tend to just do that. They just think kids are stupid, kids are complaining, kids are whining, and they don't take the problems of young people seriously, and they don't have a very sophisticated understanding of the problem. All they say is just kids, just try harder. And it's like, okay, if that's your framing of the problem, then you haven't understood it enough. You don't understand it correctly. You're not paying attention to what's going on systemically in terms of how has society evolved, how is it different from when it was in your generation. And to a boomer, I would say, okay, if your framing of the problem is just work harder, then you don't understand it well enough, and you need to go back and think harder.
Individualist mindset. They believe a man's outcomes in life.
Yeah, so he's kind of based, at least when it comes to men. Exactly. They'll send their daughters to college. They'll let their daughters date around. The last pastor I really knew well, his daughter dumped their fiance a month before the wedding and started dating a personal trainer who dumped her a month later, and she's been run through. She rode the CC. Pastor's daughter. Yeah. Everybody in the church loved her. Yeah. Ain't that funny?
Life stem entirely from his personal effort. So if young men can't get women, the only possible explanation is that they didn't try hard enough.
My man.
Way better than casting blame. However, the data also tells us there are hard limits on what each man is capable of achieving on his own. For example, IQ. IQ determines a man's capacity to solve problems and do complex tasks, and that alone has made it one of
I guess, yeah, this is another good point, is that you can work really hard, but there's only a limit to how hard you can work. There's only a limit to how much effort you can exert. And if the weight keeps getting heavier and heavier, you can't just say, try harder, because eventually I'm not going to have any more oomph to give, right? I'm not going to have any more muscle. And this is kind of the problem with men in terms of earning potential, social capital with women, is like the weight's getting harder. I'm losing less and less of my earning potential and my ability to attract a mate, but you just tell me to work harder. It's like, just lift harder. It's like, well, eventually there's a limit to what effort can do. There's a range, and that range is eventually it's going to not be enough anymore. Even if I put in the maximum amount, 100%, it's eventually not going to be enough. And maybe right now that's not the case. Maybe right now you can still have a fulfilling life if you try really, really hard. But eventually that's not going to be the case. And shouldn't we address this now before we completely screw everybody over in the future, right?
one of the most accurate predictors of a person's outcomes in life. It's also not changeable. It's like the engine in your car. It has a set horsepower, and that is it. That is the most it will ever have. You can't make your car any faster by exercising it or driving it harder. It's hardware limited. Same with your brain. Some men have a V8 up in their noggin, while others are struggling uphill with a 3.
I would say this is not as good of an argument, because I'd say it's half and half. I would say, yes, there obviously are hardware limitations in terms of IQ, height, genetics. This is what the black pill emphasizes. But I would also say that a lot of success is, I'd say it's like half, maybe. I'd say it's like half, although that's being generous, maybe. I'd say it's mostly genetics, but I would say there's still a large percentage, maybe 30 to 50%, which is effort or skills or stuff that's malleable, stuff you can change. And the boomers kind of know this because they lived in a society where there was a lot of upward mobility, there was a lot of opportunities. So they know that, at least in theory, it's possible. So they're not really going to buy this whole like, oh, it's just limited, oh, it's hardware, there's nothing I can do. It's kind of like black pill doomerism, right? And I actually wouldn't agree with this, because it frames the problem as inevitable. That's why the black pill is not helpful, is because it frames the problem as, well, there's nothing we can do, it's just genes. It's like, okay, well, genetic, problems existed in your grandparents' time. Do you think they were black pilled? They're like, oh, 6'4" white Aryan Chad. No, because they had a monogamous society, and even if you weren't 6'4", you could still get a woman back then. So the black pill wasn't true during the boomer age, and so the problem between the boomer age and now is not anything to do with the black pill. It has to do with systemic issues. It has to do with feminism. It has to do with social media and tons of things, right? Materialistic culture, telling women, socially programming women to tell them that, don't settle, don't get married, don't have kids, wait till you're 30, fuck around in college, go to college, have sex at college, don't judge women for their mistakes, blah, blah, blah. They've endured all this social programming. That's the issue, not the fact that they're 6'4" guys. That's not really the problem.
3-cylinder Toyota Tercel engine, and that severely limits what he can achieve on his own.
You know what's funny about this whole IQ thing? The higher a man's IQ is, the more likely he is to be a virgin. mentally disabled with an IQ. When women get sexual freedom, they choose to bang stupid guys. IQ.
Another hard limit is social capacity. Finally putting my psych degree to use. When you're a kid, your brain's development isn't just additive, it's subtractive on a physical level. You start off with bazillions of neural pathways in your brain, and the ones that don't get used as you develop are pruned and shut down permanently.
Okay, I just noticed this about psychology people in particular. They tend to take everything and reframe it as psychology. Like if you try to have a conversation with a person who has a psych degree, everything you talk about is just somehow psychology. It's actually very annoying because you're like trying to talk about society and church and stuff going on in the culture around you, and they're just like, yes, this is about how the brain internalizes guilt. And it's like, bro, like, no. You know what I mean? They're like, well, evidence shows that in prepubescence through adolescence, it's like, bro, shut up.
Permanently. Most of this happens before you turn 3. And at 10 to 12 years old, you're basically done for life. There's no going back. So if you didn't get enough social development during those formative years, because you were an iPad kid or your parents hardcore homeschooled you or whatever, no amount of effort later in life will ever catch you up to the people who did. Things like this set a brick wall limit on how high men can reach through their individual effort, which means that even though all men can grow, learn,
you don't need to make an absolute. You don't need to say, oh, there's no way a man can ever. We can just say, even if we say, like, it's not about, like, okay, it's impossible for men to catch up. You know, they can never catch up. Oh, they're after the age of 12, it's game over. They'll never get the social skills. Even if they could, it's still a major problem, right? Like, even if there is like 1 to 5% of men who could, you know, socialize, you know, fix their social skills and fix their life. Even if there is a small percentage of men who can do that, okay, we have to be realistic, operate on probabilities, and say that's still screwing over the vast majority of men, right? So whether or not it's an absolute, or whether it's 90% or 80% or 95%, it's still screwing over the bottom majority of men. And that's the problem. So I might be part of the elect 5% and I might win, but if we're analyzing this as a systemic issue, it's not just enough to be part of the elect. We still have to consider the fact that there's a bunch of people on the bottom who really aren't on the bottom. They're just the majority. There's still the majority who's getting screwed over. And that's the nature of the problem. That's the thing we have to point out and lament or call out as the problem, is that the vast majority of men are still getting screwed over, even if there's the random 5% of men who try really hard and they work on themselves and they go to the gym and they have the discipline and they buy Bitcoin and they get lucky and they have a great job and they don't kill themselves and they do great in life, and you win. That doesn't fix the systemic issue that, okay, maybe 5% of guys do that, the other 95 are still screwed, and we should care about the rest of those men. We should want to make the system easier for them so that less of that happens, right? That's really the issue.
And improve, and their lives will be way better if they do. It's also possible for women to set their standards so high that most men...
Man, look at this chick. Look at the jaw on this chick. She got the jaw of a donkey. I think my boy Samson used this chick's jaw to kill 100 Philistines. Yeah, I guarantee you she wants white Chad. I need a 10 out of 10 banker finance guy who's white with blonde hair and blue eyes, and I'm not going to settle. Well, you settled on a couple white dudes in college, and you're settling on a couple white guys on the dating apps. So I would recommend guys don't settle for that used up, blown out punyaya.
Will not be able to reach them within their lifetime. Also, keep in mind, the world is way more complicated now than it's ever been before. Today, you have to navigate bloated bureaucracies, office politics, HR rules, complex technologies, internet...
Women. HR rules, women. You have to be more complicated.
Manufacturing jobs than a man used to be able to buy a house with. And don't forget...
Okay, wait. I'm just gonna... This guy talks too slow, so I'm gonna summarize it for you. wasn't even about the church, so I'll have to do another follow-up video where I save this. But I'm running out of time. I got stuff I got to do today. Simply put, guys, the boomer mantra, especially boomers in the church, who are saying, just work harder, bruh, I did it. They're ignoring the fact that, yeah, there might be like 5% of guys who can, like myself maybe, who win and we don't die. But just because I made it and I, went to the gym and I had the discipline and I was smart and I worked hard and I have a good job and I buy Bitcoin and I develop social skills despite being socially awkward and I work on myself and do all the right things, that doesn't fix the fact that the majority of men aren't doing that, statistically aren't going to be able to do that. And just telling men collectively to work harder does not fix the issues that the majority of men are facing. So it's not just about me. Me passing the finish line as an individual doesn't help, men in society, right? The 5% can't just be like, all right, I win. All right, fuck everybody else. Bye-bye. It's like, no, there's still a systemic issue that we have to have empathy for and be concerned about, because it affects everybody, right? If men can't get laid, if men can't form families, men can't buy houses, the economy sucks for men, then that leads to a bunch of other problems, right? We have to concern ourselves with the whole of society, not just ourselves, right? Think about what kind of society our children are going to inherit, right? What kind of society do you want to step out to? You might have your property, you might have a good job, but you still got to walk out in society. You still got to go and, go to these cities. You still got to go outside and, walk in the park and talk to people. And what, you're going to have friends, or all your friends are just going to be, they just skated by on the skin of their teeth as well? You're only going to hang out with people who got lucky? No, you're going to hear about men struggling. You're going to hear about, their family members struggling. You're going to hear about this problem, right? So you as an individual, even if you did win, that doesn't do anything to solve the larger issue. And the modern church is not helping. It's actively reinforcing this disparity and it's defending women. The boomers in the church are actively defending women, giving them a cover, giving them a shield. And they're actually doing the devil's work, right? Because they're giving women this plausible deniability, this facade of being virtuous, of being godly, while they're running around getting a bunch of dick in college, right? So that's kind of the problem I see, is that it'd be much nicer if we didn't have a bunch of fake virgins, a bunch of fake Christian women that I have to sort through to find the real ones, right? That's the real problem, is they are wearing the cloak of virtue while they practice sin underneath that cloak, right? So what would I say to men? What's my advice? Do what you can. You gotta not fall in the pit. I would not think too hard about the broader issue. You gotta focus on yourself. You gotta do the right things for yourself. And you can't really fix the problem either way if you don't have capital. So you can't even do anything at all if you don't have assets, if you don't have influence, if people don't like hearing what you have to say, if people don't respect you, if you don't have a career. So that's really where I'm at. I mean, I'm allowed to talk. I'm not saying you can't talk, but I'm just saying, if you want to help people, if you want to fix this systemic issue, if you want to move and shake in politics, if you want to help other people, help young men, you need to accumulate wealth and power and social capital first. And that will make your life infinitely easier. But once you get to that point, don't suddenly forget that the rest of young men are still struggling, right? So do what you can. Use your wealth to try and shape the system, right? And I guess all young men can do that. You don't need to wait. You don't need to wait till you're rich to try to reshape the system, but do whatever you can as an individual to better yourself, and then also try to push back against the system. Maybe that's voting different. Maybe that's withholding your vote from certain politicians, or demanding, certain stuff if they want your vote. So it could be political action. It could also just be, if you're near people, you openly speak your mind about, hey, I think this is wrong. I think feminism is wrong. You think that doesn't matter. You think people just don't care. Oh, they're just going to call you misogynist. They're not going to listen to you. You're just one voice. But I think a big problem in the conservative or the big traditional movement is they think that people aren't listening to them. You do have impact. Like, if you truly believe in what traditionalist values, and you promote them, then people will care. They will be like, oh my gosh, this guy's different. Like, maybe he is right. Like, it'll at least get people to consider your perspective. And if you're on the side of truth, then they might reject your ideas at first, but slowly over time, they'll start realizing that, holy shit, this guy was actually right. This guy was actually spitting fire, making some good points. And I would just do it that way. That's kind of my avenue right now. Is I don't really think politics works, because I think politics is more about bureaucracy and money and powerful people. And it's a big dick sucking contest. Who can suck Larry Fink's dick more? Who can suck, Palantir or these big powerful corporations with money? Who can suck them off the most? It's a big dick sucking contest up in Capitol Hill in Washington, right? So don't even bother trying to go up there, because the rule of the game there is money, and you don't have money. So don't even try to affect change up there. It's not worth it. Instead, you should be working on the ground, where you have people in your life that you can talk to right now. You have family members you could be convincing. You have, your opinion at school could be heard. Like, the Marxists are kind of right. That's the tool that works. That's how they got control of the institutions in many ways. That's how they swayed public opinion, is you had these, open, prophetic, openly pronouncing their ideas to everybody. This kind of like social revolution, right? That tends to work, actually. People tend to receive and internalize things that they're told or heard out in public, right? And to me, that seems to be the most potent weapon you as a young man can do, is say, yeah, I don't like feminism. I think feminism is bullshit. Here's why. You might disagree, but just think about it. Reflect on it. And then, maybe that doesn't work right away, but and if there's another man who is thinking about doing it, maybe he'd be like, hey, I actually agree with that guy. I was just afraid to say it. And then he kind of backs you, and next thing you know, you kind of have, it becomes acceptable, it becomes permissible to have anti-feminist, traditionalist, hey, I think sex before marriage is wrong. Hey, I think this is this and that. I sincerely believe why. And then maybe you invite discussion, right? You invite people who want to debate. You can say why this is bullshit. You can say society sucks right now, and here's why, blah, blah, blah. And maybe you can start to, sway public opinion, right? You have the side of truth. You can harness a lot of frustration. A lot of young men are frustrated. A lot of women and men and young people are frustrated with the current system. There are a lot of boomers who don't like how gay and progressive everything is. Like, you have a lot of the motivation from the populace to a lot of stuff you could capitalize on, and emotions, feelings, residual sentiments you could harness in the general populace. And to me, that's much more potent of an avenue than trying to compete with a bunch of random people in Congress who all only care about money. It's like, yeah, if you're a trust fund baby, then yeah, throw around some money in Congress, right? But most people aren't. Most people are never going to have that. But what everybody has right now, even if you're just a random dude in your basement, you're just a random dude, you can talk to people about work, how you know what, guys, I don't really know if I buy this whole feminism bullshit. I think it's really hurt society. I think women like to have kids. I don't think women want to work. I think they find a lot of fulfillment by having big, happy families. I think that's good. I don't think women should wait till 30, to start a family. I don't think it's realistic that women can just have it all, right? I think, you got to prioritize one or the other. And it's good to have kids when you're, younger and healthy. And we have to think about the birth rate, right? That's a big concern. So you don't have to be like aggressive, or you don't have to be mean or hateful. You could just throw those ideas out there, and if they don't like it, that's fine. Don't worry about it. But that's kind of the problem now, is like everybody wants there are men who would agree with what I say, but the problem is that most men aren't willing to sacrifice their, they're not willing to get out in the open and say it. They're not willing to put their neck out on the line and be the guy who expresses his opinion. You're just expected to shut up. You're just expected to fit in with the group. You're just expected to, go along with what everyone else is saying. If you start talking, people will be like, who's this guy? What's he yapping about? Shut up, bro. And it's like, that's how they kind of keep you in line, right? Do you like being kept in line? Do you like being told to shut up? I guess you do, right? Because that's why nobody says anything. And to me, that's much more potent. Is like, you can just say shit. Like, you can just be like, nah, I disagree. Nah, I think that's gay. Nah, I don't like that. Nah, feminism isn't good. What are they going to do? Right? You'd be like, oh, but I might get ostracized. Like, so what? They hate you anyway. They all hate you anyway. Don't you guys know this already? They all hate you. Like, you can suck dick as much as you want to try to, climb in the social sphere, but they all hate you anyway. None of them like you. The women just want to use you. The men are slimy. They just want to take advantage of you. They want stuff from you. They don't like you. Right? They're lonely. The only reason they even talk to you is because they're lonely, right? So that's the avenue, I think, where men could actually do something, is if, the other one is violence, like if men got violent, but we can't get violent if we aren't openly upset. We have to be openly professing dissatisfaction with the system. That has to come first. How are you going to enact mass violence, guys? How are you going to have your little red pill revolution if you're not even going to speak your mind in public? If you're going to be like, I go out in public and I wear a mask, I love feminism. Okay, Chronic, that's kind of gay though, right? Because you don't actually have any... Yeah, you have this underground movement, but if all you do is you remain subterranean and underground, like Tucker Carlson says, if that's all you do, then your movement doesn't go anywhere. Right? Like what are you going to do? You're just going to accumulate a bunch of people who silently agree with what you're saying and then wait till you hit a critical mass? And then start a revolution? No. People need to be openly saying how they feel. And it's like, if some feminist gets upset, who the fuck cares? Fuck them. Like, let them get upset. I honestly want to see them get upset. I like it when they get upset. That arouses me. That turns me on. Sorry. Anyway, but yeah. So I don't know. It's just like, we have these guys who are like, yeah, I support Andrew Tate, bro. I love it. Yeah, feminism, bro. Yeah. But they won't ever say anything. They won't be like, yeah, I think feminism is bullshit. I hate feminism. Feminism is awful. We should have a patriarchy. Women should do what they're told, right? Like, men are pussies. Like, the red pill men, like, Destiny is right about this, guys. Like, the conservatives, the red pill men, they're pussies. They won't actually say what they believe because they're afraid of being called racist. They're afraid of being called sexist. They're afraid of being ousted by the group for, my views aren't politically sensible. And it's like, you don't have to be some absurd, like, well, I think the moon is a fake satellite pushed up by NASA because the earth is flat. You don't have to be some, like, crazy spurg freakazoid with your opinions. You can just say kind of, like, basic things. Like, I think feminism isn't good for men. I think feminism is hatred for men, right? Like, you can just say these things. You can say, like, it doesn't have to be some, like, spurgy opinion. It can just be a normal opinion that you're expressing. It can just be like a normal, level-headed, bare bones, kind of sensible statement. Like, feminism is bullshit. I think votes don't work, right? Or whatever traditionalist thing you want to say. I think the church is full of boomers and women aren't held accountable in the church, right? I think women should be chaste. I think women should preserve their purity. I think that's a good thing. Oh, how dare you? Who cares? Like, what are they gonna do? Okay, if a bunch of leftists come at you and they like, oh, I think you're a pig, you're a misogynist. So what? They're a bunch of weak, pathetic leftists. They're not gonna do shit. They're not gonna do shit. Now, if it's Antifa and they dox you and they come find your house, I mean that's a big problem, right? That's why I'm anonymous for the most part. I'm mostly anonymous on this account because yeah, there is a bit of a threat, but in public, face to face, they're not gonna do shit, right? Like if you have any amount of testosterone, if you're anyways tall, they're not gonna do shit to you. They're not gonna beat you up. They're not gonna, hey, what are you saying against women? Say that again. Like all these people that you're afraid of being called out by, they're not gonna do shit. Even the boomers, like what? You can't knock out some like 65-year-old boomer. What are you scared of? Right? Now maybe at work, I would say yeah. If you have a job that you need to protect, try to be careful. But even then, you can get away with a lot. Like you can get away with a significant amount. You know, as long as you're intelligent, as long as you're careful, as long as you're like, okay, is my direct supervisor a like rabid Marxist? No, they're actually kind of like they have a family, they're white, they're sensible. Okay, then I can say certain things without getting lynched, right? And think about it this way, you really don't have much to lose, guys. In modern society, you really don't have much to lose. They hate you all anyway. You don't have any purchasing power. The only things you can buy are useless Amazon, McDonald's, DoorDash, Goyim crap. So even the purchasing power, what can you purchase? You can purchase trash. You can purchase cheap slave labor in China, right? Like you can't actually have nice things. So you can't buy anything. You're never going to own a house. They'll all hate you anyway. Like don't do the stupid, gay, subversive Charlie Kirk like, "Oh, we got to package it and be strategic and compromise and no, fuck that shit. That's gay. They're going to hate you anyway. Don't cut your nose, right? Despite your face. Don't do any of this dumb shit. Don't screw over your own movement. So just fucking go for it. Just be like, yeah, feminism is bullshit, guys. Fuck it. Like, stop being pussies. I'm sick of pussies. Getting kind of sick of it. I don't like it. We need to do better, guys. We need to have higher standards for ourselves. And then, of course, yeah, work hard. Do all those things. I should make a video on myself and what I found to be effective. I'm just a young guy. Like, I'm not, you know, some super experienced, I know everything, I'm the alpha male who figured it all out. I'm just a guy, and I could just share my experience. Maybe that would help some guys, some people, maybe some randoms. I mean, it's pretty basic stuff, right? It's pretty basic, but I can share my progression, how it happened for me, how I did it, and what I think were the lessons that I learned to get my life, you know, kick it into fifth gear type deal. So anyway, that's going to be it for me, guys. I got work to do. I got stuff I got to do today. And I'm sick. Maybe you can hear it in my voice. But anyway, I got stuff to do. So you all have stuff to do. Get off YouTube. YouTube is bad for your soul. It's bad for your brain. It's a big waste of time, right? So only really listen to YouTube if you're busy doing something else. If you're like, I'm driving a truck and I can't go anywhere. I'm busy making food in the kitchen, right? Like only if you're working and listening at the same time, or you just have time to kill that you can't do anything else with, should you be listening to YouTube. So with that, I'm going to head out. Take care, everyone. Leave me a comment, and I will definitely read it. See you later.